To get started here. Thank you very much for being with us here today. We've got a wonderful webinar organized here with Alison Langford, our workforce strategist at BCHA. She's going to take us through some LMIA exempt streams and speak on some of the recent changes on federal immigration policies. In such a fluid environment right now, it's a great time for this update. We also have Terry Clay with us from the Alberta Hotel and Lodging Association. Terry and Allison will both be available for a Q&A session at the end of this webinar. A couple housekeeping notes before we get started. This webinar is being recorded, and all the resources and materials we go through today will be shared with everyone later this week. Questions are certainly welcome, so please enter these in the Q&A box. This is important. We're not monitoring the chat section, so any questions that you have, please enter them in the Q&A box as we move along in the webinar, and then Allison and Terry will have a chance to answer those at the tail end here. Before we get started, I just want to say that today's webinar is sponsored by the Canadian Hospitality Health Program. This employee benefits program is a joint venture between the Alberta Hotel and Lodging Association and the BC Hotel Association. It's managed by Avance Insurance Services, and so I'm happy to welcome Justin Friesen in to speak about the program before we kick things off with Terry and Allison. So with that being said, over to you, Justin.
Thanks, Gareth. I'm just going to offer a very high-level introduction to the program. It warrants a little bit more of an overview. If anybody is interested or hasn't yet heard about the program, please reach out to us at any time. We'd be happy to set up a call or a presentation on the program. But just to get a very quick taste of how the program works, I'm just going to go through a few slides just as a little teaser. Gareth, if you could change the next, that'd be great.
Yeah, certainly.
So really the a great question to ask because there's really only two different ways that a company can set up a benefits plan. Thank you. So the question worth asking is how do large corporations structure their employee benefits plans? Because we know that very large organizations tend to be able to structure things more affordably. And the key point I'll say here is in insurance, whenever you're large enough to remove the insurance company, that is where you're going to achieve real savings. And the benefit that big companies have is they have thousands of employees, and that gives them spread of risk and predictability in pricing. That is where your headache is created, and what creates the vagaries in your pricing is you just don't have predictability because your group is too small. Big groups can also get lower costs because they're removing the insurance company from the equation. So, if you could change the next slide. So the program structure is really mimicking how large corporations set up their benefits. They are self-funding their health and dental. So this program is a multi-owner self-funded program. It's self-funded under what's known as administrative services structure, where members are pooled together in a very large group under a very large policy, which brings you a similar type of clout and credibility that large corporations have. There's proper governance in place, which tracks all the expenditures of the program. And it ultimately removes the markups that you are currently paying to an insurance company to run your health and dental program. We do also have the life and disability and those higher risk coverages there through a partnership with a major insurance company. So moving forward to the next slide. You'll see you have very key important advantages through this program. Through being an owner collectively on this new initiative, you can own the funds that stay in the program as opposed to going to an insurance company. So collectively, this not-for-profit, all the participants own the program. It reduces costs through that collective negotiating power, and it provides rate stability that you can never get on your own because you're part of a very large pool and you have true spread of risk. And it's important to note too that this program is able to tailor your coverage in exactly the same way, if not better than you have, because this is an industry specific program designed for hotels. So you have coverage flexibility to meet your needs. And to also clarify, the administration services and adjudication are both provided by a company called Johnson Group, which specializes in running not-for-profit self-funded programs. So they are very large. This is all they do. They're a leading employee benefits administrator in Canada. They're also Western Canadian based. This is their specialization, and they're available to offer a best-in-class experience for your employee benefits administration and the service that your employees get through their own proprietary technology. And lastly, if you're interested in joining the program, we recommend, first of all, setting up a call with one of our agents. We would be walking through documentation, information regarding your current plan, and eventually working towards providing you a side-by-side comparison on the new program relative to what you have right now to ensure you understand the value, both in terms of the experience coverage and savings on the new program. So as I mentioned, feel free to reach out to us anytime. I'll now pass it off to Allison to take you into the remainder of the presentation. Thanks for having us on.
Great. Thank you very much, Justin. All right. Allison, are you there?
I'm here.
Awesome.
Uh, Nothing like a few snags for a webinar.
There you are. Well, just in time. If you can take us through the agenda for today before you get going, that'd be great.
Okay. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us today. I'm excited to be joining you today along with Terry Clay from AHLA. We are going to talk about some hiring solutions. We've had some sort of crazy times happening with lots of changes to our federal programs. So we thought it was a good time to try and come together and just talk about some of our domestic options, some of the partnerships we formed, maybe some that you know of already, but some that may be new. And just trying to provide sort of a path forward for hiring solutions, continuing to support you to make sure that you have the staffing that you need and that everybody is working at full capacity. Are you going to do the slides, Gareth?
Yeah.
So, okay. So some of the programs you might have heard about before, but we want to just make sure that everybody is on the same page. I've had the pleasure of working with the Alberta Hotel and Lodging Association, and we're developing workforce strategies for their members as well. I think we have a variety of people on the call today, so we're speaking to all of our members and partners out there in the world. And certainly just want to make sure that everybody has the same information, and that perhaps we can share with you some new ideas, maybe some sources of staffing that you haven't considered before, and certainly talk a little bit about the lay of the land, and to know that I'm here to assist as I can. I'll share with you what I know today. Tomorrow it might be different, I'm not sure. But we'll try and keep everybody as up to date as we can. So we're going to talk about some of our partnerships with refugee resettlement programs and groups. We're going to talk about the Francophone mobility program, so connecting with French-speaking workers. We'll talk about the importance of education and upskilling, and some partnerships there. We'll talk about community organizations. I will talk a little bit about immigration programs. They're still out there. They're just a little bit more challenging to navigate. And considering and looking into consideration of schools and practicums and co-op placements and tapping into a contract labor pool. So that's kind of sort of the widespread for our agenda today. Again, there's questions. I don't know if you said this already, but there will be time for questions at the end. So we're happy to tackle those. And this will also be recorded. So if you don't need any more information, it's there for you. So our federal government has been busy. We have seen some pretty drastic changes happening for the temporary foreign worker program. It's been hot on the agenda. And so in case you don't know, probably a lot of you are aware, but some of the most significant changes that we've seen is that if you've applied or gone down the path of a temporary foreign worker before and applied for a labor market impact assessment, They are no longer an option if you are in an area, a region where the unemployment rate is 6% or higher. So we realize that there are some cities mostly that the opportunity to hire a foreign worker through an LMIA is may not be possible. Now these unemployment rates are going to be reviewed I think every 3 months is what they said. You can check them. And if it fluctuates or changes, that, again, you may be able to, that may change for you. The number of temporary foreign workers you can hire on an LMIA has been reduced from 20% to 10%. And so we recognize again that that's going to be a bit of a challenge for some people. That the reality is that they need their temporary foreign workers in order to meet their staffing needs. The LMIA has been reduced from being valid from 2 years to 1 year. So if you've, again, gone down this road, you know that probably by the time you get your worker here and trained and sort of settled in, it would be, if you want to keep them for the 2 years that you have in the past, you're going to have to go through the process again. So it's a little bit of twice as much work, twice as much money. And so again, a little bit frustrating that we've seen these changes happen. We have been advocating to get an answer on when the student hours may change. The government promised that there would be, it was reduced from 40 to 20, and then it was supposed to go back up to 24. There has been no official statement from the feds on this. We work closely with our friends at the Hotel Association of Canada. HAC is doing some great advocacy work. But we just don't have an answer yet. And given the political landscape, we may not for some time. I realize I've heard from several of our members that they really want to try and give their international workers, international students, the 24 hours that they were hoping to be able to do. So we'll continue to work on this. I do want to recognize that it takes a village to try and make some changes, and we really appreciate our friends at Go2, our friends at TIA BC. I think it's going to take working well together with all of our organizations in order to make our voice heard. So I really appreciate that everyone's willing to kind of step up and do what we can to make sure that our sector is taken care of. So that being said, what are some positives? What are some new ideas, maybe some new approaches that we can take to meeting our staffing needs? Both BCHA and AHLA are working closely with several post-secondary institutions in BC. For example, we're working with, on Vancouver Island, we work with Royal Roads, and in Lower Mainland, Ascenda, and Western Community College, and Okanagan College, and just to name a few. We in Alberta, working with partners like Olds College, with the Northern Alberta Institute of Tech and the Southern Alberta Institute of Tech. All of these schools have students that are looking for practicum and co-op placements. They need your support in order to get these placements. And so we really encourage you, if you don't already have a relationship with them, to reach out and to work with them maybe a little more closely than you have in the past. Certainly, this may be a good alternative for you if you're not able to hire the same number of international students that you have in the past, or the international students can't work as many hours as you need. Certainly, these schools are happy to be working with us, and again, have a new workforce. We have students that are keen to be coming into our sector. They're keen to learn. And so taking the time to make sure that they have really positive experiences is going to ensure that our sector stays viable for the future. So, again, if you don't have these relationships, please reach out. All these resources are going to be available on both of our websites. So we're trying to make sure that after the webinar, that you can know where to go look to try and find the contacts and the connections. I also encourage you, if you don't already, to even be looking at connecting with your high schools. So career planning, starts in the last couple of years, in grade 9, perhaps, as students are entering into the high school and trying to decide what to do. We know that our industry has a messaging challenge sometimes. People don't always look at tourism, hospitality, accommodation as a career. We need to get that message out that this is absolutely a viable career, and that maybe we're not very good at tooting our own horn and talking about just how great our jobs are and what experiences we've had. And so I think that the more that we can share that, starting even at the high school level, it's going to be important. We have heard from many career counselors, they just don't have the time to reach out into the community. And so, if we're willing to go and speak to a class, or if we're willing to go and attend a career day or a career fair or something like that, you really can make a difference in the inroads that you're making with those that are looking at what is it that I want to do with my career? What career do I want to have? We could really make a difference at that level. Just talking about BC first. We have a couple of allied partners that have developed a casual labor app. These are working really well. So if I'm someone who is maybe going to school, or maybe I have a full-time job, but I have capacity to pick up some shifts, maybe if I'm on a break or a weekend or what have you, both these apps work and employ, are great ways for people to just really easy to register. Say, I'm available next Saturday. I have experience as a server, and as we get into the Christmas season, it may be a really great way for you to find people to fill in for, on a one-time basis or a short-term basis. If you have a big event at your hotel, or if if there's a wedding or what have you. And so that it might be possible to pick up additional workers on a really short-term basis. So rather than, in the old ways of sort of putting out ads or what have you, there are a couple of really cool apps that have been developed. I've been working on making sure that we're connecting with community organizations, especially those that are working with newcomers to Canada and refugees. So just talking about Vancouver and Vancouver Island first, Mosaic have 5 different locations in the Lower Mainland, and they are doing a great job of providing the supports and services that newcomers need. So that may be ESL schooling, it may be just support to get into the workforce, it may be just connecting to employers out there in their local community. So we have heard from some of these organizations that they didn't consider our sector as one that these newcomers to Canada may be eligible for. And so they haven't really necessarily connected with us in order to better work together to make sure that these newcomers to Canada, or refugees, or even people that have been here for some time but are working on their English because English is a second language, they never considered reaching out to our sector. So we've been trying to sort of bridge those relationships. And so it may be a really great alternative for you to consider. Generally speaking, any of the programs that are sort of work-ready programs, it means that the people attending those programs will either have a work permit, or they would have been given their permanent residency when they arrived in Canada. So they are ready to work. So they are able to enter into the workforce. In Victoria Intercultural Association, they're mostly around the Greater Victoria area, but they will have relationships with other community organizations if they're in more remote communities. I was really pleasantly surprised to hear that they are able to do translation services. So if you have a training manual, or if you have, things that you typically would give to your staff that are only in English, They may be able to assist to translate these documents into other languages. We know that they're also pretty flexible. So in some situations, they're willing to come to your workplace and to put on English as a second language classes for a group of workers that may want to improve their English skills. So some pretty cool initiatives happening. Certainly some of the hotels that had hired a lot of Ukrainian refugees. It was a bit of a challenge potentially to get the training done and to be able to to bridge that the language barrier. But I've heard some really wonderful stories of hotels that got very creative. And they were able through some translation of documents, through some support, through English language training, and through a lot of sort of smiling and hand gestures that they made it work. So these community organizations are there to support. And then in the Alberta side of things, Gareth, can you flip? Yeah, here we go. Sorry. Some other organizations. Again, these are going to be on the resource page. So Alberta Association of Immigrant Serving Agencies, Edmonton Mennonite Center, and Edmonton Immigration Services Association. Those are providing the same sort of services. So lots of ESL supports, lots of work-ready training, translation services, that kind of thing. And then one program that Terry and I had the pleasure of being introduced to is called the Ukrainian Rural Traction Program, and so projects. And so what they do is that they connect with workers that are in maybe city centers who don't necessarily want to be in a city or have sort of settled themselves in the city, but now they want to branch out and be in a smaller community. They will literally bridge the gap from finding a Ukrainian family that wants to relocate to a smaller community and to connect them with an employer that's wanting to hire them. So a really cool initiative where they're actually saying, hey, maybe you're not a big city person, or hey, the cost of living is just too crazy. So we need you here, and we're going to find you an employer that wants to hire you, and they're going to make that connection. They're also going to help with the resettlement part of things. And, they've said, generally speaking, these are people that probably have a car and a driver's license and that kind of thing. And that they're pretty set up so that they are ready to kind of put down some roots now that they've got their feet back on the ground after relocating to Canada. So they're only in Alberta, so lucky you, but it was a really cool project that we heard about, and was really pleased to connect with them. So this might work well for you. We hear from a lot of the smaller communities, super hard to attract workers to come and stay. Now, housing is going to be something that you're going to have to sort out. But again, these are, people that, again, are pretty self-sufficient. And then we have just the last one was just the Prospect Human Services. So that's training for underemployed Canadians. So again, looking at connecting with another community organization for a more domestic options. Canadians wanting, again, to be retrained and to potentially be looking at a career change. Encourage you to connect with your Indigenous partners in your community. We've heard from different Indigenous organizations that they're saying, hey, we're here. We want to connect with you guys. They're doing some really great things within their organizations and their programs. I just put that up there as a reminder. There's some really great Indigenous career sites where it might be a place where you haven't searched out for different job seekers. So Indigenous Links, Aboriginal Career Board, and First Nation Jobs are just some of the few that are out there. So they're keen to work with us. Some people, I think, have done a great job of connecting. Others, maybe it hasn't been something that they've considered or know how to go about doing it or what have you. And so we just, again, want you to make sure that you're looking at all options out there. And certainly the Indigenous community is again, keen to be working with us. Okay, so switching gears just a little bit. is that we want to talk about a couple of partnerships that we have with two different refugee organizations. One is Talent Beyond Boundaries, and the other is the Hires program. And I think Eliza is on the call today, so hopefully I'm not I'm not stealing her thunder. I want you guys to connect with her. Just talking about Talent Beyond Boundaries. This program changed in the last year, so it was a little bit more limited to only skilled occupations. One of the really positive things that we see happen is that they're able to include job seekers who fall into the skilled and semi-skilled category. In simple terms, we're talking about cooks, supervisors, and managers, which would also include light duty cleaners, kitchen helpers, front desk people. So all the positions that we would typically be hiring for are eligible to be included in this program. They have had a pretty unique opportunity where they've had a private donor come forward and is willing to fund 20 positions for job seekers who are interested in the tourism, accommodation, hospitality sector. So they're really trying to bump up our sector. So typically the fees to hire a worker through TBB would be about $5,000, sort of similar to what you would spend on an LMIA. Those fees basically have been waived, and so they're really trying to connect with our sector again. I've been working with Lara for a few years, and we haven't had as much success as we would like. So the fact that we've had a private donor come forward specifically targeting our sector, it means that they have refugees that have experience in hotels, restaurants, accommodation, jobs related to what we're hiring for. And they're specifically targeting those refugees to come to Canada. My suggestion is that that it may not be a one-off, but you would look at maybe 2 or 3 of them. And that would just make settlement a little bit easier. This is sort of a time-limited opportunity as well, so we only have until the end of November. So certainly, if you're interested, please connect with me. I'll connect with Lara, and we can get that ball rolling. And then the Hires program, again, excellent opportunity. Eliza has been working with many hotels in and around different cities in BC. I know Tofino, Kelowna has seen quite a lot of success. They're able to do continual intake now. So rather than just before, it was a little bit more cohorts in certain times of the year. They've changed their program a little bit. Typically, these are younger single people coming to Canada. Again, refugees that have the skills and experience that we're looking for. And again, around the same cost that you would be looking at it if you were hiring a temporary foreign worker through the LMIA process. So, just really excellent programs. These guys are doing some really great work. And so I really encourage you to reach out. We like to see us a little bit more involved with refugees. It's just the right thing to do. They have a database of thousands of people who really want to come to Canada. And so I just think if we can boost that program and make this happen, I think that is something that we really want to look at. And I encourage you to consider that if you haven't already. Other options for what we call programs that are not LMIA required. So this means that I don't need to apply to Service Canada for a labor market impact assessment. There are such programs that exist. One of them that probably some of you have had experience with already, you may not have even known you were involved in this program, but it's called the International Experience Canada. And these are the mostly young people that are coming to Canada on working holiday permits. So I've heard from lots of hotels that said, I had a great group of people from Chile, or I hired these great Aussies, or, if you're in Whistler, there's full of Aussies. How do they get here? They apply through home country. They apply to come. We have these partnerships with 36 different visa exempt countries. And the idea is that we provide an opportunity for people from any of these visa exempt countries to come to Canada, have an experience. So they're going to work and travel. And And then as a Canadian, I'm too old now, but I could go over and do the same thing. So it's a reciprocal agreement that that we want to that is there to help people sort of explore the world. So I've heard from sorry, before I go into that, there's sort of three different types of IEC streams. One is the working holiday, which is probably most of if you've ever hired anybody on a working holiday, open permit. This is how they're here. Sometimes what can happen is that you might hire someone, say, as a front desk, and they're doing a great job. Their year is up, and then you say, you know what, I don't want to see you go, and they say, I love Canada, I don't want to go either. So you could potentially apply for a second work permit, but it has to be in a skilled position. So if they're ready to, to be promoted to a supervisor or a manager of some sort, you could apply again in a different category. And then there's also the third option is international co-op. And so this is usually if you're connected to a school in home country and they come for a co-op placement for a short duration of time. So that's the International Experience Canada program. That's another LMIA exempt program. I heard from a lot of hotels, they would say, I found these people and I don't know how to find them again. So I had a great summer. Again, I had some great people from Japan or Chile or where they're, whatever visa exempt company they're from. And they said, how do I get them? How do I get more next year? So I'm really happy that to say that we've recently signed a partnership with an organization called Languages Canada. So they have a consortium of 8 schools that are operating language, 8 ESL schools in Canada. They also ended up working with these some of these people that had come to Canada on a working holiday permit. They wanted to boost their English skills, so they ended up doing a short English language program. But after they were finished with their English language program, they said, well, now I want to work, but I don't know how do I get a job? How do I, go about connecting with an employer? So we've thought it was a win-win. We have the students that are here on working holiday permits that have an open work permit, and we have the jobs. And so if you are looking for staff, full-time, part-time, again, this may be a really good alternative for your international students. These guys are ready to go. So we will have a database of students that are looking to connect with hotels to be hired on a part-time, full-time basis, depending on what your need is for, for the summer, for a whole year, whatever it is. So this is a new initiative and a new partnership for us. And so we're just sort of getting it off the ground, but I think the timing might be really beneficial for you to consider. So it's just sort of an organized way for you to find workers that are here on working holiday permits, and they're keen to get into our industry as well. So you just need to call me. And then the big one that we're really promoting, and we think that this is going to be a really viable alternative to a labor market impact assessment applications, is the Francophone Mobility Program. So the Francophone Mobility Program is, again, labor market impact assessment exempt. So you do not need an LMIA in order to hire a worker through this program. The Francophone Mobility Program is promoted through an event called the Destination Canada Mobility Forum. And so we have represented our members of BCHA for the past 2 years and have gone on your behalf. This year, we're really excited to be partnering with our friends at AHLA. And so we wanted to just sort of expand on the number of opportunities that we had and the exposure to this program. So because of the changes to the LMIA, the government really likes the Francophone Mobility Program. They have made no changes to it. And there's really sort of an endless supply of super keen, really experienced, excellent candidates. So Ingrid and Chris and I came back from the event last year, and we were blown away by the quality of the candidates, the experience of the candidates, and really their enthusiasm to come to Canada. So Canada is not a hard sell. There's lots of people in the world that want to come here, and they're super keen to come and to be joining our industry. So I really encourage you to have a look at this as a really good option for your staffing needs for the next year. The next event is in November. So there's an online event, November 13th, 14th, 15th. And then the in-person event is in Paris mid-February. And then from Paris, it goes to Cameroon for another 3 days. And so we will be promoting this to you. Um, and there are going to be some timelines and sort of a call to action. We can only go if we get enough job orders. So it's just a cost recovery kind of a program. It's way cheaper than an LMIA. So for every job offer that you make, you're paying a $230 employer compliance fee. And there's a little bit of immigration work in the sense that you have to submit the job offer through an employer portal. You have to send in a job order. So we will be going in person and literally sitting in front of these super keen people and interviewing them. And we'll come back with resumes and our interview summary for you. We would then send you the so sorry, I go back. Here's the process. So we're going to come back with resumes and interview summaries. For those that have signed up, you're going to submit your job orders. So you're going to say, Allison and Terry, I need a cook, I need some light duty cleaners, and I need a concierge. Okay, so you have 3 job orders that you can give us. We need to know your job. We need a copy of your job description, the wages, that kind of thing, because that gets given to the organizations and organizers of this event so that they can make sure the appropriate candidates are attending the event. So we put a link on both of our websites. So you can go to the BCHA website under resources. You're going to find an easy link to go to the Canada Mobility Forum. Fill out your information, tell us what job orders you need, pay with your credit card, and then you're in, basically. So there's a limited number of people that we can represent. There's capacity levels, and so we're asking that that we have a commitment from people by November 5th. Certainly because we have an online portion that's going to be starting mid-November. November 8th, I'm sorry, November 8th. And if people miss that or they don't want to be part of that, if you want to be part of the live event, December 6th is going to be our next cutoff. So we're really pushing this. We think it's going to be an excellent alternative. And we just have some really good success stories and just super excited to be bringing these people to Canada. And, you know, life is a little bit easier. Who knows what changes is going to happen next with the federal government. And so this is one they're not going to touch. So I think we need to support it and to make sure that it doesn't go away as well. So 2 really good options. So your IEC Canada and your Francophone Mobility are the 2 really, if you're looking at international recruitment, those are the 2 really viable options that we're encouraging you to have a look at. Okay, what else? So not everybody has gone down the route of LMIAs and, you know, maybe not even considered looking at international recruitment. Certainly, we encourage you to hire Canadians first. That's the message. But the reality is there's just challenges to filling your staffing needs. We know that. So we, both AHLA and BCHA, have a memorandum of understanding with the Consulate of El Salvador. So what does that mean? It means that the Consul General of El Salvador in Alberta and in BC, they have a database of workers that want to come to Canada. So in their home country, their Ministry of Labor, they have a pool of candidates that have the skills and experience for the jobs that you're hiring. So again, just like with the Francophone Mobility, we would take job orders. You would tell us what you need. You will get sent resumes. You would interview the people. So we're not vetting the people for you. We're simply providing the connection to the person that you're hiring. Um, but the consulate does all of the work for us. So they're going to apply for the work permit. They're going to do all the immigration work. And then when the worker's ready to go, we just need to make travel arrangements and housing arrangements for that worker to arrive at your workplace. They will get a so this is an LMIA required, so it does require an LMIA, and they'll get a 2-year work permit. So we already have some candidates here. We've seen a lot of success in the Tofino Ucluelet area. And so we know it works. We know that they're excellent workers and they're just so thrilled to be in Canada. BCHA also has memorandum of understanding with the Consulate of Barbados and the Consulate of Mexico. So all 3 of those countries are, again, really keen to work with us. They have a database of experienced, well-trained workers that they don't have as many options for in their home country. They know that they're probably not going to be able to make a living if they stay in their home country. And so they see a lot of success in their workers coming to other countries to work, potentially going home or staying if they decide that they want to make Canada their home. But that is an LMIA required event. And so again, those cap, the cap restrictions are going to have to be taken into consideration. So, we are trying to connect you with as many options as we can. It's a bit of a scary landscape out there, but there are pathways in which we can still be successful in making sure our sector remains viable and successful and profitable. And certainly if you have any suggestions for other places or people that we should be talking to, I'm happy to hear that, whether that's to myself or to Carrie for AHLA members or both of us. And so, we're here to help. And even if it's that you're having terrible frustrations with something or you don't know what the answer is or what have you, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm happy to speak to your HR team or one-on-one or what have you. Again, I don't know everything every day, but I'll try and find out and try and navigate this ever-changing landscape that we've been facing. But we're really pleased with the partnerships that we have, and we know that we have organizations and workers that really want to be a part of our sector. They want to come and have an opportunity here in Canada. And so I just really hope that we can work hard to make sure that we're doing everything we can to reach out and to make sure that we're using these connections so that you benefit. And that's it.
Well, I'll give you a little break there, Allison. Thank you very much for that comprehensive overview of our partners as well as the programs that we are taking part in to help our members hire, especially with the upcoming hiring window, and looking forward to next summer. So thank you very much. We did have quite a few questions come through in the last 5 or 10 minutes here. So if you're ready for those, I'll start firing those off to you.
Terry, do you want to join me? Go ahead.
Sure.
Not that you had a choice after that, eh?
There you go. Okay, well, this one is from Karen. So, what would be the timeline of getting employees to Canada with Talent Beyond Boundaries?
About 6 months. So they would almost everything that we're working on right now is a target for spring, summer 2025.
Okay. Next question here is, what is the update on seasonal LMIA? Can we bring them multiple times?
Yes. And my understanding today is that seasonal LMIAs haven't been affected by the changes.
Okay. What is the length of the work visa for Francophone program?
2 years. if
Okay.
not longer. You can do multiple job offers.
Okay. Another one here from about the Francophone Mobility Program from Amy. Would you recommend this program when looking for seasonal workers?
Yeah. Yeah, I think you just need to be clear in your job offer what it is that you're offering to them. So if you're saying it's only going to be a 6-month contract, we just need to be upfront with that and to let the worker know. They may, if they're looking for, longer time in Canada, I guess you have the risk that they may not accept the job offer, but you can change your status once you're here in Canada. So, the person may come and they may work at a really cool seasonal job for 6 months and then be looking to transfer to someplace different for another 6 months. So it would just take a second job offer so that they could remain in Canada.
Okay, and this one from Kelly. So some of us are wondering with the immigration changes, how do we keep the workers we currently have that have permits expiring or are currently in implied status?
Well, call me, I guess. This is the heart-wrenching part is that with a 10% cap, um, and you're at 20%, if people have expiring work permits and they can't apply for new LMIAs, then workers may have to go someplace different. We are trying to we're feeding information to hack and saying, are there any exemptions that the government might consider? And there is some hope that regions that are identified as resort areas might get exempt from some of these rules. So that's a little bit of hope. Um, and I can only encourage everyone to get political. The reality is that your local MP can't do anything unless you tell them. So if you're going to say, look, I'm going to lose half my workforce, these people are here, they have housing, they're trained, they're part of our community, and we're at jeopardy of losing them, your MP needs to know. And I think HAC needs to know. They can take those stories to the table and make the human cause for it. But we're again, and if we don't know, we can't make that case to HAC as well. So please let me know if you're in that situation. But that's a big fear, big fear.
Okay, and this one from Thomas. How did the new CIP codes impact visa applications, work permits, and other aspects relevant to international students in Canada?
Oh, I was trying to avoid the student conversation. So, again, this is I think a work in progress, but there's only been 5 programs that have been identified as meeting the requirement. 5 programs offered by colleges that meet the program requirements for a post-secondary work permit. Um, Hospitality tourism has been left off the list, and so schools are getting political. HAC is getting political. So how is it going to affect it? The effect isn't going to be immediate because it really is for the new applications, probably starting in September. But what it means is that right now, my understanding of what it means is that if I'm taking a program that isn't on the list or isn't one of the programs identified, when I graduate, I may not be eligible for postgraduate work permit. So if it's a 2-year program at a college, I may not be eligible anymore for postgraduate work permit, which probably means that maybe that international student would choose to not do the program or to not come to Canada. Um, Bachelor programs, master programs are a little bit different, um, but it's a huge issue. It's big.
Another one here from Karen. Any information on all the Ukrainians we have on staff that have visas expiring? Our hope is that their extensions will be approved.
The program has been extended, so they can apply for additional. They can apply to extend their work permit. There are a couple of specific things you need to do when applying for your work permit. But between Terry and I, we should be able to provide you that information. So that's one good thing. That's a win.
Excellent. And then any advice on how to keep the employees we currently have on visas that are expiring? This may have been answered earlier.
Again, so the one thing about working with the with Languages Canada, they're a recognized organization, which means they can issue work permits, and they can issue work permits sometimes for countries that aren't part of the visa exempt countries. So there may be some creative answers depending on where the workers are coming from. If they're visa required, if they're from a country that's visa required, it's going to be more difficult to keep them. But maybe they can transfer into other programs. Maybe they can transfer, maybe they qualify in the Francophone Mobility Program. Maybe they would qualify for a working holiday work permit. So again, it's so specific. Probably better to have that conversation individually. But look at every option, I guess. The challenge is that people aren't getting their permanent residency nominations is the other hurdle, right? So people typically would come into Canada when they're eligible to apply for their permanent residency. They would apply for their permanent residency. They would transition from being uh, um, a temporary worker to being a permanent resident. And if that program was also working both in BC and Alberta, we wouldn't have all of these workers that are sitting waiting to get nominated and you having to do multiple LMIAs in order to keep them. The challenge is that they're not getting nominated. So we have a pool of workers that are waiting and there doesn't seem to be as an easy a pathway to permanent residency as there used to be. Now, stay tuned. Um, the government, who knows, they can do anything they want. So they could announce tomorrow that there is a brand new low stream permanent residency stream that they've created. They've done this before. And so I would just encourage all of your workers to make sure they have their English test done, they pass their English test, and if they're not in the pool and they can get in the pool, get in the pool because we don't know what's going to happen, but we think something's going to happen to break the dam. And they have indicated that most permanent residency nominations are going to go to people already in Canada. What does that mean? We're trying to figure it out. But if it means that they might create a pathway to permanent residency as a one-off, wouldn't that be great?
Okay.
Francophone mobility is employer specific.
This one from Barb. Are there any exemptions for rural areas for AINP nominees?
Yeah, yes, maybe. Again, pretty specific. We could try and walk you through that.
Yeah. I'm just looking at a few of the other questions, and they are quite specific to certain employee experiences that are taking place right now. Um, perhaps best to follow up directly with Allison about some of these questions, as we're kind of getting towards the end of the webinar. So I think maybe at this point we'll move to wrap up. And if your questions did not get answered during this webinar, please, we urge you to reach out directly to Allison and Terry in Alberta. Anything you want to close out on here, Allison, before we call it a day with the webinar?
Or Terry, do you want anything you want to add?
I just think, watch for communications. We'll be sending out updates as soon as we hear about them and, really trying to keep the lines of communication open. If there are specific situations, please contact either myself or Allison, and we can help you kind of navigate through that particular situation. And definitely consider the Destination Canada Mobility Forums. I think it's a great opportunity for us to bring some people in for next summer.
And my only advice is have a plan A, B, C, and D. It's immigration. It's everything, right? I mean, it's not just immigration. It's workforce options, and that's why we tried and talk about domestic, less complicated, complicated sort of things. And And so, yeah. So, I mean, don't do just one thing. I know oftentimes people are doing it off the side of their desk and they're saying, I don't have the time. We get it. And so if we can help, let us help. But, you know, here we are sort of out of the blue. The federal government made all these crazy changes that has made it really difficult to bring in temporary foreign workers. So now, okay, now we have to now shift. Okay, is there another program? Okay, yeah, we can do that. Am I talking to my high schools? Am I talking to my local colleges? Am I doing francophone mobility? Am I doing LMIAs if that's what I need? Am I also, you know, making sure that I have international students? Am I talking to the right people so they understand my needs, and how these changes impact your ability to do your business or to run your school or however the impact is. So, yeah, I mean, I would just don't do one thing, do as many as you can. Look at domestic and international. That's the reality of our workforce, and that's what we're going to need to keep our sector going. And so, you know, we're a resilient bunch. We can we can overcome these challenges. But we need to work together. And I think it's reaching out to GoTo, to TIA BC, to, you know, we all need during the pandemic, we had a unified voice. And I think that we've heard that a couple of times, is that we need to continue to have that unified voice. Our sectors have largely been ignored again. And we need to make sure that the government understands the importance of the work that we're doing and our benefit to the economy. And that's a little bit frustrating right now.
No doubt. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Allison and Terry, for your time here. Just a reminder, just to close things off, we will send around the recording of today's webinar as well as the slideshow presentation. So don't worry about that. You could share it with your colleagues or your partners. You know, share it with other hotels who may have not have been on today's session. So stay tuned for that email. We will send these out in the coming days. Big thanks to Allison and Terry, and thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you for your time.